NASM is giving you free courses. That's right, free courses each month just for being part of the NASM family. Learn about everything ranging from nutrition to strength, weight loss to stress relief, and everything in between. Click the link in the bio for information and to claim your free course before they're gone.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Random Fit. I am Wendy Batts, and I am here with my friend and colleague, Mr. Ken Miller. How are you today?
I am well. Thank you very much. How are you?
I am just living a dream. You know, no place I would rather be.
That's right.
Well, I'm excited. I say this every week. I'm so excited about this week's topic. You know, however, this week hit home for me a little bit. And I think we actually came up with this topic because of a interview that we did with Grant Hill. And one of the questions that I had for him was, how do you not push a sport onto a child when you are, you know, a 19-year NBA player and this amazing all-star man? Like, how do you not be pushy? And he just said, you know what? I can't be. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, my kid is in T-ball, Ken, and I'm like on there like, run to first. And they're all tackling each other because the whole team is running to first and running after the ball. Yeah. And I'm scared for my future.
No, and I think you're just being a parent, Wendy, and that's what it comes down to. Because again, I mean, that was a great interview with Grant Hill. Because the other thing he mentioned was, you know, like you said, he can't be pushy, right? Mm-hmm. He can be supportive. And I think we lose that because, you know, you get excited and I know how competitive you can be, Wendy.
Me?
in everything, right? Yeah. I think we might need this isn't a podcast, it's an intervention. But from the vantage point that, you know, like you watching your little boy, you know, playing T-ball, and, you know, you want to yell, you want to scream, and you know, go get it. But, you know, I'm the same way. But I have to, and, you know, I'm a pretty subtle and I'm a calm guy. But when it comes to watching my kids play their sports, you know, whether it's, you know, swim, water polo, baseball, I want to stand up, I want to yell, I want to be that parent. But, you know, rules say that you can't. But, you know, the other thing that comes to mind is like, is it what my son and my daughter need to hear from me right now? You know, as far as, you know, how can I best support them in what they do without doing the, oh, Dad, you know, you get that, you know, I can't believe you said that. I can't believe you said, I mean, they have yet to say that, but you know, you can kind of see them kind of look at you in the stands a little bit. But I don't want to be that guy. And I mean, that's what we're here to talk about today, is how, you know, how can we, you know, do what's best for our children as far as supporting them and seeing that they get what they need to get from sport. And again, from that Grant Hill interview, made me think and reflect a lot, and which is why I'm really glad we're talking about that today.
Yes. And I know one big one that he kept saying is, I have to be mindful. And I'm like, oh, you know, that mindful word keeps coming back to haunt me, because I'm like, yeah, I suppose. Yeah. Mindful. Yeah, I got it.
And you're hop, skip, and a jump from being meditative. So
totally. Yeah. I need to become one with myself before I go to practice. But, but you know, when you look at the research and you're looking at, you know, there's so much. I was actually shocked when I saw all the information that was directed towards coaches, that was directed towards parents, and that were directed towards even older siblings that played a specific sport, and their younger brother or sister were playing the same sport, and they were very competitive at it. I found it fascinating, because when you think about this, and it makes total sense. However, this is written and you're reading it, and sometimes you need someone to point it out to you again. But parents and coaches who are pushing too hard, it's going to really wipe out the kids' motivation. Yeah. And then you've got to think about it. And this is something that Grant also said, but also something that I tend to do, like, hey, do you want to go outside and, you know, hit off the tee, or can I do a soft throw to you? Or, hey, buddy, you want to go like run the bases, or, you know, and I'm pushing that practice on him. He's not asking to want to go out and do it on his own. And when you're reading and you're looking through some of the content, that's the number one way of burnout. And then when they get burned out, they're doing the same thing over and over again. Then they don't want to play. So then they lose the love of the game that they would have probably liked if you would have just backed off and let them be. And that was really, I mean, I needed to read that because, like I said, I think this was more for me. Like you said, maybe this is a podcast just for me that I need to listen to back, you know, over and over again. But I was like, you know what, I need to back off, and it's hard.
Yeah. You know, and I'll say that, I mean, it winds up being, it takes a village, right? It takes a village to raise a child. And part of that village winds up being sport and activity in your community. And, you know, I was lucky enough, you know, with my son and daughter, they had the same swim coach. But what really comes front of mind right now is, you know, since we just finished baseball season, my son, he finished his, you know, he played t-ball, and then he's doing his first year of farm ball. But, you know, the thing about that really stuck out in my mind is that he would have an hour and a half practice, which holding an 8-year-old's attention for an hour and a half, it takes a very special team of coaches, right? But, you know, when all is said and done, what does he want to do? He wants to play catch, right? He wants to play catch either with his teammate or when we're walking away. Hey, we got to go have dinner now. He's like, well, can we play catch first? And then he'll, you know, then the bargaining starts, right? How about 20 throws? Well, how about 10? You know, okay, we'll take the 10, right? But he still wants to play, and he still wants to, you know, to do a little catch with me. So I think part of it's, you know, he just wants to hang out with dad. But the other part of it is like, you know, he had such good coaching, and they put the right energy into it, and they made it fun. They made it interactive. They take, you know, you take baseball drills, but you make it for an 8-year-old. Yeah, that love for the sport and trying to avoid burnout, because it is a matter of enjoyment, and it is about play. And I think that hopefully this first year of really playing baseball, you know, is a springboard for more years of being not just baseball, but I mean, great sport, but also just being active and finding the right coaches that can help support that. And then me as a parent, you know, being supportive of that. And like you were mentioning, I was, come on, Keith, let's go out early and, you know, work on some grounders. Yeah, that's not fun. So I got to really meet him where he needs to be met when it comes to his involvement or his interest in the sport. And yeah, I want him to do a lot of different things. I want him to swim. I want him to play water polo. I want him to play baseball. I want him to play basketball. I want him to golf and all that stuff. But if that's me kind of transferring to him, because I know if I were yours, I want to do everything. Right. But the bigger part is making sure they're interested.
Yeah. And I think, you know, that was one thing that I was actually kind of proud of myself for as I was reading is I'm trying to expose my son's 5. So, you know, obviously very, very young, but I want to expose him to a lot of different things. And so, you know, I have him in a variety of sports because I want him to truly find what he's passionate about. So I was glad when I read that. But, you know, one thing about that is when you have a child in multiple sports, they're actually going to do better when you choose later on, you know, their specialty sport, if they are going to just choose one sport over another. And because they are learning different ways of rotation, different speeds, you know, hand-eye coordination, and being able, you know, to judge depth of certain balls or, you know, of jumping certain ways and doing different drills. And so, you know, I was like, well, that's great. But when you read into it deeper, that's also emotionally, it's better for your child emotionally because they are meeting different people. So the different stimulus, they're getting exposed to different things. So it's fun, the variation and variety of what they're doing every single day. And then Ken, with what you and I do, we know that repetitive movements can lead to injury. So if they're constantly just playing the same thing over and over again for multiple years, yes, they may get better at their craft. However, they're burnout, they're injured, they're sore, and they didn't really get exposed to something that maybe they might have liked better. So when you're looking at research and you're looking at, well, when is the ideal time for a kid to choose like what, you know, to be in that one specialty sport? They're saying late puberty to early adolescence, you know, so like when you're thinking, or I'm sorry, late adolescence. So you're thinking about that, it's around 15 to 16 years old.
Yeah.
And then at that point, they're going to really choose the sport that's best for them and where they find their fun. And then that's when they build their, their team and their love truly for the game. And then they can do their other stuff for just fun because they've been exposed to other sports,
Right. Exactly. And you're listening to Miss Wendy Batts and me, Ken Miller, here on Random Fit. And the topic is for the love of the game. And as far as being, not being a pushy parent and doing what we can to support, our kids or kids in general when it comes to their activities that they might be participating in as they grow up in life. And Wendy, you brought up a lot of good points there as far as being diverse in sports and activities. A lot of information out there as far as the promoting different backgrounds and different activities, because overall you want and this is kind of extending off of what you're talking about, you want to you want a person to grow up as a good athlete, right? They can do a lot of different things, a lot of different ways versus early specialization. And one of the things is, of course, from an academic standpoint, I'll just kind of branch off there. Yes, your grades statistically are higher in kids that do 2 or more sports, right? So if you're somebody that, like me, tell them like, hey, you have to get good grades. It's about discipline and studying and being able to learn different ways. But for my children to do multiple sports, and again, we're not going like 2-3 sports a day, right? We'll just toggle between a couple activities, through the week. But, my hope is that as they grow up and as they participate in different activities, this will reflect not just in them physically, but also from a scholastic standpoint. I mean, if we're going off of that research that, 2-3 sport athletes do better in school than single sport athletes. So as we're talking about, the brain's developing and you're learning different sport, and as you mentioned, your different sports, different activities, different movement patterns. The way I like to look at it is, and something that I've read also is like you're learning different strategies. So your brain has to process information in different ways. So if you're, for example, if you're playing baseball, how I wake up my son, I say, hey buddy, and he's still sleeping in his bed, head's on his pillow and his eyes are closed, but I know he's kind of awake and kind of listening. I'll say, okay, you're the shortstop. The batter hits a grounder between first and second. What do you do? Right. So I'll kind of get him. I'll start getting him thinking that way. And of course, then his eyes are closed and goes, I cover second. Right. So, so now he starts, and that's a very simple way of saying it. Right. Depends. Is there a batter? Is there a runner on second and third? Okay. Right. So now he starts thinking in different ways. And of course, now if you have somebody who's playing soccer at the same time, now how you manipulate the ball, where the ball's supposed to go, or even water polo, things like that. And that just, for me, is one of the more important things, just getting their brains, especially when they're young and the developing, getting those synapses to fire when it comes to learning sport and strategy on top of the physical stuff.
Well, yeah. And when we're talking about, the single sports, one statistic that I pulled out that was so alarming. So if you guys don't know, my past is when I first started in this industry, as I got a chance to work with professional baseball players, mainly baseball pitchers that were coming off of Tommy John surgery, which is basically a reconstruction of the ulnar collateral ligament. So basically your UCL. So they just Tommy John, that was I think the surgeon in that, how they got the name for that. But so when you're thinking about an elbow reconstruction with a professional baseball pitcher, that makes sense, because think about how hard they're throwing and the different ways they have to manipulate their hand, their arms, and just the stress of that the elbow to throw 90 plus miles per hour multiple times throughout a game. And now when you're looking at the younger folks and the coaches that understand this, there's actually a ball count, max. Like, you're not going to exceed this amount of balls thrown, in a practice or in a game or something, because they realize that the longevity of that, or the chances of them blowing out their elbow, are going to be significantly higher with that, repetitive business. Well, when I was looking through some of the stuff, about 60% of all the Tommy John surgeries in the United States to date are usually from patients averaging 15 to 19 years old.
Yep.
And it's like, okay, it makes sense in professional baseball, but you guys have to understand when you're going through something like that, they usually take the tendon that comes from your Achilles tendon. So basically in your ankle, or they can take, or they'll have to pull it from somewhere else. Usually this right here, which, is the tendon that if you put your thumb and your pinky together, you'll see this tendon pop out. They'll cut it from there too. That's usually the one they go to first, but not everyone has that. And then they'll take it and they'll wrap it around basically and make a new tendon for their elbow. So it's definitely stronger once they get through that. But think about what happened mentally, mentally from the game. It wasn't the surgeon. So Tommy John was a pitcher in the 70s. Sorry, guys, for the Yankees. I knew that I was going to mess that up. I'm like, was it,
it was a coin toss. It was a coin toss on that one.
You know what? And if it's 50-50, I'm always going to choose the wrong answer, just so you know. But it's like, for me, I just know how to rehab that. I don't know the total of the background. So maybe we should do a podcast in the background of Tommy John. But yeah, so when you're thinking about that too, I mean, when you start to push your child past a certain limit and you're just being that parent that wants them to, and everybody wants their kid to be good, and that's the big thing, everyone wants them to excel. So how do you get better at something? You practice, right? Perfect practice makes perfect execution. Yeah. So, but yeah, don't be me. Don't be that pushy parent. I'm having to step back, so when I was reading all the do's and don'ts, it was overwhelming. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah. And, and it's funny because it's not funny, haha, but, when I go out to Chicago every now and then to help out my buddy Mark out there, and he's got a baseball academy outside of Chicago, and I go out there, I do the assessments, and he's working with young kids, right, and specializing in pitchers, like with what your experience is talking about. But that, sadly enough, that 15 to 19-year-old age range is where he'll say, hey, I need you to see this kid. Can you talk to this kid? Can you do an assessment on this kid? And you have a kid. Here's a guy who's, a young man who's in 8th grade, and he can't extend his elbow because maybe he was the best pitcher in Little League. And, guess what? If you're that young and you're the best kid, and, compared to the drop off between number 1 and number 2, and you really want to win a game, well, guess which horse you're going to ride for the games, and if there's tournaments and things like that. So these, unfortunately enough, my experience in seeing, these an example of an overuse injury, you have a kid who's now had Tommy John, maybe the rehab went well, right? Because, I both know that rehab is just as important as having a good diagnosis and having a good outcome with the surgery, right? Rehab is going to make or break whether or not someone gets to where they need to be. And, you have a young kid who, it's like, I'm sorry, there's not much I can do for you at this point in time. You need to go to a physical therapist, or you need to see somebody else for this. And if we can do more to avoid those situations where the younger they're doing more and more and more, and get them to be diverse and do other things. So if this kid was playing, let's say, just because we brought up water polo, or even playing soccer, just to give them some off time, and that's the other thing. Early specialization is one issue, but having year-round options for sport to where they're doing one sport and now even longer winds up being a health issue in the long term, just because you're accelerating that overuse situation, and putting somebody at higher risk for, these overuse patterns.
Well, I think, for those of you guys that are just joining us, we are talking about For the Love of the Game. It's really about don't be that pushy parent, and sometimes we need to do reality checks on ourselves, because we put a lot of pressure and stress on on our kids, or, even if we're coaches and they're not our kids personally, we have, we want to win. Everybody wants to win, because if you're not first, you're last. That was a direct quote from Ricky Bobby. And so, Talladega
Nights.
That's right. I'll definitely quote that all day long. But it was interesting. And I'm Wendy Batson. I'm with Ken Miller. So just so you guys know, we haven't figured that part out by now. But when we're looking at it and we're trying to think about it, we can talk about the injuries, we can talk about the burnout, but when you're looking at yourself as a parent, the one thing, you've got to think about is if you're constantly hounding your kid, you're being critical about how they're playing, you're being judgmental, and you're comparing them with their other teammates.
Yeah.
And again, we're talking about like T-ball and like little league, and we're talking about, just in middle school and even in high school. We're putting unrealistic pressures on our children that really isn't fair to the kid. Then it makes them not enjoy it. So later on, what kind of experience did they have? They had you hounding them. I mean, I've seen parents, and this was not me, just so you know, but I've seen parents literally chew out their children for missing a grounder or missing, there's a goalie and, they missed the ball. So, the other team scored and the dad just went nuts on their kid. Like, how could you miss that? And, it's like, well, then they feel like pond scum, and you want them to play better for the second half after they just got scolded in front of their other teammates and coaches and stuff like that. Yeah. So I know that that's a big thing now too, is coaches are actually having, talks with the parents away from their children. Like, let me coach. And if you want to be the coach, then don't have your kid be a part of my team. Right. And I think that is phenomenal. That's how it's going to have to be. And I have to remember that.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, there's been a couple, like I said, we're talking about 8-year-olds with my son's team. And there's been a couple times where, a parent, I've had to bite my tongue because, I've heard the coach tell the kids, listen to me. Right? Don't listen to what's happening out in the outfield. Listen to me. And that same situation you mentioned, a kid missed a grounder. This kid, was in the outfield, caught the ball, right? Or got the ball, and he didn't know whether to throw it to second, the pitcher, or first base, because his dad was in the outfield telling him to throw it second. The coach, right, wanted him to throw it to the pitcher just to end the play. And so he held on to the ball while the runners ran because he was hearing one thing from his dad and then another thing from his coach. So here you have a kid who, if you left it up to him, he might have made the right decision. But because, he had this other voice in his head, it kind of distracted him from the play at hand. And guess what happened, right? Not that much different than what you just said, from the standpoint that, I saw the parent, the dad, take him aside and not yell at him, but now he was scolded for something that he didn't do. But I can understand, it was paralysis analysis. He knew the play, he knew who to listen to, but he was distracted, and he got just talked to about it later on. So this kid, I don't know if we're going to see him next year just for other things that we saw. And unfortunately, it's just a sad thing, because, kid's pretty good, loves the sport, but doesn't want to disappoint anybody. So, that's what you got.
Yeah, I think it's important too, for parents to realize that, our role is to be, is to positively shape our child and help them with any kind of experiences. And if they come to us and they want our help, or if they're asking for outside coaches, I know, and I hear this often, like, how do you train, do you train your husband, or do you train your kid? Now, granted, my kid's only 5. And my answer to that is no. Neither one of them are going to listen to me. Neither one of them even listen to Grant. Sometimes having someone on the outside come in and actually Grant Hill, when we were talking about that, but, coming out and having someone teach them, to be better at something. Because the thing is, if you notice that your child has a ton of compensations, or you notice that they're not executing like a really good pitch and they could lead to injury, you can be a parent that notices that and then be supportive of trying to find a solution. And I think that's one thing, is we're supposed to be able to positively shape what excites them. Because, you've seen, and back in the day, this might show my age, but back in the day, there was a Gatorade commercial where it was like, I want to be like Mike, and they were talking about Michael Jordan. And it was like, there was like this little song that went about it. And the thing is you're teaching a child to dream. You want them to have their own people that they look up to, their own role models. And, for me, I had certain ones growing up I still love to this day. And then as I've grown in different sports, I have those people that are my favorite. And it's because they were good at their craft, but it was also because the time they put into it and then what they're doing
Right.
outside of that as well. And so you just want to think about your child, be very well-rounded, be very supportive, be honest, help them when they need help, but then also too, just guide them and understand that if you can get them in multiple sports, if your time allows you to be there, I think the one big thing too is be present, be with them, be supportive, be their cheerleader, not their coach.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned, that Be Like Mike,
I would sing it, by the way, but I don't want to do that and scare everyone.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, I don't want to do that either. A lot of people can't. They know Michael Jordan from basketball, but remember when he took that little hiatus and he went to play baseball, right? And what else is Michael Jordan known for as far as what he does recreationally? He golfs. Right. So you have a guy who has different interests in doing different things. And
he owns a NASCAR right now too, I think, right? He's into NASCAR. I don't know if you guys know that. Little insight.
But he's not the guy getting in behind the wheel though, right?
I don't know. He's paying for the guy to get behind the wheel.
Can you imagine him? They have to those guys are stuck behind the wheel. Can you imagine if they had to create a car?
Oh, he'd be in the trunk.
He's sitting in the back seat and
oh, totally off topic. Sorry, y'all.
Yeah, well, hey, that's what podcasts are about, right? But my point to saying that is, when it comes to, some of the great athletes, so you're two sport athletes, you have Bo Jackson, right? And you had, what's his name? Quarterback for Florida.
Tebow.
Anyway, yeah, Tebow. Right, baseball player, right, football player, right. So a lot of these guys that are getting recruited, to talk from more of a collegiate standpoint, a lot of these guys that get recruited, the coach, if they're getting recruited for football, for example, coaches are known now, especially the top tiers football coaches. They'll go to schools, and when they want to talk to the football coach, they don't just ask, because they've seen the tape, they know what their capabilities are, but they'll also go talk to the baseball coach, right? And they'll go talk to the soccer coach. So if this highly recruited athlete, is being sought after by these big schools, a lot of times the coach doesn't just talk to that football coach, they'll talk to the other sport coaches as well, looking at, how is he as a player, how, soccer player, baseball player, how's he with the team? How's he in the locker room as far as his ability to work with and, build camaraderie with the team. So being diverse in other sports also, you can look at, okay, well, how well do you get along with your other teammates? And again, that's just a social thing, it's because life is more than just sport, right? It's about how we interact with each other. And if you have a player that, can be good at a sport and be good for the team, that's also something that, it's another feather in their cap as far as what it does to create a well-rounded young person growing up, having sport as part of their life.
Well, I think, sports, it's so much more than just the sport. I mean, they're learning life skills. They're learning how to share, like my kid played soccer and he loved the ball. He thought he was the best and he thought he was the fastest. So he never wanted to kick the ball to anyone else because it was all about him. And I remember when I played soccer growing up, when I was very young, I would want the ball. And if I didn't get it, I'd kick the player to get the ball and then make the score. That is not ideal, but but it was a learning for me. It was something that, I had to understand. I had teammates. And so it teaches you, how to be disciplined. Right. It teaches you how to share. It teaches you life skills of being able to manage, like you said, your balance. So work, meaning schoolwork, as well as your sport, as well as your family life. So, these are things that can carry over. So there are a ton of positives about, playing in different sports. And I think, as parents, we have to be patient. We have to let them try to, choose what's best for them. Because, like if you were good at something in high school and you're still saying, hey, when I was in high school, I won state and I did this and that, and you're now like in your 50s, you got to let that go because I hear people say, oh, I used to play in college. And I'm like, yeah, but how old are you now? How many years ago was that? And, because we're still living in the past, because those were such good times. And I think having those memories is extremely important. And if we push something on our children, they may not make those memories because we push them too hard.
Right. Now you bring up a lot of good points there from the standpoint that, when the life skills standpoint, and I know my kids are, very young yet, but the whole thing about managing their time, their schedule, being prepared, because, when it was a little warm, and if I forgot to put the water bottle in my kids', backpack, guess who had to go back and get some water from? I'm not going to let them, get thirsty for a whole practice. But that was also one of those things where, all right, hey, we forgot your water bottle last time. What do we need to make sure that's in your backpack now? So having them be responsible for their things. Another game that we played was more a matter of, all right, what's our time check? If we have to be there by 3 o'clock, what time do we need to leave the house? Where are your things? Are they where they need to be? Did you get it set up the night before? So over time, like you're saying, Wendy, it's just, you got to be patient. And, there's the way we think as adults, but kids, it's a great opportunity for kids to learn self-responsibility for the activities that they're doing, not just, getting ready for their activity, but also, did you get your homework done? Hey, you got a busy day on Tuesday. What can we do on Monday or over the weekend to kind of lighten the load for when we are, out and about, we're at the park, or we have 2 practices back to back. So those are the opportunities I'm seeking out. And it's like, God, why can't you figure this out already? So it's nerve-wracking for them too, because they're the one that's going to suffer, from not being prepared, but also they're going to suffer the wrath, right? Of why didn't you get that together?
Well, and I think it's also important too, not to overly, choose so many sports where they're so busy that they don't get a chance to be a kid. And so it's kind of like you got to find that happy medium. And so, I know with my family, and again, this is just me personally, I have, like my kid takes swim lessons once a week, and we only do it once a week. However, we still go to the pool, we still practice, we still do that for fun, but we still work on some of the stuff that he's learning, because obviously I need him to swim. So therefore, just for safety reasons. But then, I have them in camps where they're doing tennis and they're doing swim and they're doing art. So it's called Strokes Camp. And so they, it's a half day where they're doing different things, that was specifically on strokes. And then, and then he's in T-ball. He does that twice a week. And then he loves to go golf. And so like last night we went to Top Golf, and we just let him whack the balls, and so, but we're trying to make things fun. We're doing a lot of family things together, because again, we only have one. So we're holding on to every moment, because, as he gets older, he's never going to be that small again. And so, I think sometimes as a parent, we hold on too tight, we dream big, and we have big expectations for our kids because we want to be supportive and provide them with every opportunity. But sometimes it's also, this is basically a podcast of all I want to say as a reminder for myself, as well as anyone listening, sometimes we have to let go and let them be kids, let them have fun, and also just be their biggest cheerleader, be mindful. That's my takeaway. Be mindful. Be mindful. Right. And don't yell at your kids. Like, don't be that parent. Unless they hurt someone or they do something that's not right, then yes, obviously that's a time and place. If they have a crappy at bat or they miss a goal, they already feel bad enough. So they feel horrible, and then now they're getting yelled at, and then you want them to go and play well for the rest of the game. It just, sometimes it's a reality check. Like, that really doesn't make sense.
Right. Yeah, and those are some great takeaways. 2 things I ask my kids before they participate in any competition. Practice is one thing, and competition is another. But whether it's practice or competition, one of the things that I ask, or 2 things I ask them: one, did you have fun? Right after when all is done, did you have fun? And then the second thing I'll ask them is, did you learn something? Right. So fun being first, right? I'm going to only ask that question for so long, right? Like, did you have fun? You have 4 years of me asking this question, right? did you have fun? Did you enjoy it? Did you have fun? Were you in the moment? Were you able to kind of stop and smell the roses and kind of realize where you are, who you're with, and the enjoyment that is there to be had when it comes to playing sport? And did you learn something? I do want them to kind of take away, learn the sport, get the skill, whether it's something related to the sport or something that they picked up from another teammate, which is kind of surprises me sometimes when what they learned was not about baseball or swimming, but it was something that they got from another kid. I was like, oh, that's a great lesson, right? So that's where I am today, and that's where, again, holding on, let them enjoy it, let them be kids is the number one thing. And just remember that, hey, I'm just a parent. I'm here to support you. I'm not here to make you the next greatest athlete. You're not going to be Joe Montana. You're not going to be, Tim Tebow or Bo
you
Jackson.
You never know.
Or
you never
Tom
know,
Brady.
though. So down deep inside, I'm thinking, you don't know. Just kidding. I'm kidding. I'm going to get hate mail. I'm not going to be that parent.
All right,
I just want you to know.
Erase this whole podcast. Yeah. Let's do over. But Wendy, this was actually really, I have great times when we have a chance to do these things, but a lot of takeaways from this one as far as being a parent and understanding what sport is actually there for, when it comes to our kids. It's not about, winning, getting the trophies. It's about, what they take away from being with a team and all the things that come from being a part of a team. So brings a tear to my eye as far as it's so short. So on that note, hey, Wendy, thank you so much, for all that I've taken away with our time together today. So for all of you listening to us here on Random Fit, for the love of the sport, for the love of the game, like, follow, subscribe, comment, download, all the things that show that you appreciate the information we have to share with you. Let us know if there's anything more that you want us to talk about on Random Fit. So until next time, take care and be well.